Okay, here's the biggies. And these are the ones, everything up to this point has either been set in motion or different degrees of being set in motion. But these next three are the ones where I've got ideas, and it's going to require that the mayor and you council members give me some direction and make sure that what I'm presenting as opportunities actually line up with your vision. I guess I'm going to go backwards just a touch and talk about it became very clear what the main priority is, and that is declining property values, and it's the overall desirability of the community. And we have opportunities. But other than just the normal city functions that are incorporated in a yearly budget, I see an opportunity that we go above and beyond. And just being in survival mode, if you will, that we take the opportunity to control our own destiny, seize some opportunities. And I think that we've got some real opportunities here. The very first one actually is, to be quite honest, going to be the easiest. I last year, it would have been in 2014. Prior to that, the council made the decision to move the police department out of the law enforcement center with Macon County. Great facility that was built for the police department. I think it's the fire department's turn in terms of facilities. And I guess what I would like to share with everybody is the newest fire building that we have is 21 years old. The oldest that we have is 88 years old. And I have hired Dewberry and Associates to do a fire facility study, and that's in process. But we're looking at an estimated $4 to $8 million in identified fire department building repairs and or replacement. The total reason to even explore this as a possible revenue opportunity, I could actually go through this slide and not even mention Decatur Ambulance Service because it has absolutely nothing to do with them. But I understand what the but I understand what the impact is. So I'm the one that reached out to Decatur Ambulance Service and met with them and wanted to share what I was going to present to council tonight. This has nothing to do with response, has nothing to do with the level of care, it has nothing to do with any of that. It's just quite simply me exploring what revenue opportunities there are to offset some of the facility costs that are coming to the fire department. If there is no appetite from council to explore this as an opportunity, that's fine. Just the money comes from some other source. My thoughts were that, God forbid, you got to call 911 and you need an ambulance. Why couldn't that stone kill two birds? You're paying for an ambulance ride, and then if you pay for that ambulance service, it also could potentially help pay for some of the fire facilities. Now, what I've done, and I have done this with Chief Abbott, is the lines cross if we get beyond wanting to put one ambulance in the city of Decatur in service. Because one ambulance we can do with the existing manpower at the fire department and overtime. And would be exclusive to a single district, would not cherry pick calls throughout the community, and then also have no desire to add to that number. Really did not study the discussion that occurred in January or February of this year because it didn't matter to me. Because this was entirely about trying to find a way to generate revenues to offset some of the costs on to the community for the fire facilities. Real simple. Proposing a local motor fuel tax. Right now, we do not have one, and actually, I was surprised when we first started looking at the budget in August. I was surprised that the community did not have a local motor fuel tax. A lot of details to work through if I get the green light from council to explore this. There's opportunities for it to be retail. There's opportunities for it to be bulk. The one thing that the state does not provide is the numbers, how many gallons that we sell. But what staff have done in the past is looked at other like communities with about the same number of gas stations, about the same population, and we know as a rough guess that for every penny per gallon, that will generate about $300,000 in revenues in local motor fuel tax. Bless you. At 5 cents, that puts us at $1,500,000, and this would be used exclusively to work on projects in our local neighborhoods. And I guess one thing that I did not say, because I got sidetracked and I'm not following the script that I provided, but with the fire, with the ambulance, and also with this one as number two, feel that there are opportunities to target these revenues for single and very specific items. I mean, that's critical. This is not something that I'm suggesting and it ends up being lost in the general fund. You know, this is this investment in Decatur's future that I was talking about, not simply doing projects that would have otherwise have been funded, except for the fire, except for the ambulance, because the facility needs are needed. This slide here with the local motor fuel tax and the next one related to urban redevelopment are specific, and really the goal is to present opportunities to make this investment, you know, in Decatur's future. Believe that this will generate 1.2 to 1.5 million. Again, projects in our local neighborhoods, and what I mean by that is, there we go. Projects in our local neighborhoods. I see opportunities to do stuff in the existing subdivisions. And sidewalk to sidewalk repairs. Subdivisions don't have sidewalks. Some don't have curbs and gutters. But there are areas in the community that under our current road replacement rate, which is well over 200 years, gives us an opportunity to get into the neighborhoods. And with that said, I see two areas that we might be able to focus if this is approved. And that is, are there opportunities in some subdivisions where there might be a dead end? Would this be incentive enough for a local developer if we make this kind of investment in the different neighborhoods, whether it be with a sidewalk, whether it be putting curb and gutter in, or just simply improving the roads in that subdivision? Are there opportunities that we might have, or that a developer might take to extend that road? New housing is relatively flat. Might be an opportunity to extend the road, take a chance on some new housing opportunities, maybe that target market of 140 to 175,000 for a home, and might be incentive enough, I guess is what I'm saying, for local developers. The other area that I see this money being used for, you know, if not the first, is some of the urban redevelopment ideas that you're going to see in the next targeted revenue stream as an opportunity to invest in that as other things are occurring. I see that we have gaming and liquor revenue opportunities, and quite simply, the goal is to generate a revenue stream of $750,000 annually, and it would be tied specifically to fund these areas, all of which will fall under an urban redevelopment line item within the budget. Require a monthly, quarterly report, because I guess the biggest thing that I want to make, you know, this pledge to the community and to you 7 elected officials is that this money is going to be used for these things. Otherwise, we don't really have the general fund revenues to do these and have trouble in some cases keeping up. Demolitions. This is an area where would like to make major investment in demolitions. We have, for example, we have, how many do we have, Wendy, on the demo list? Roughly?
Probably 150.
Okay.
We haven't added any. Council hasn't for months.
Okay. 150 are currently on the demolition list. We also have a large business, is that on Grand Avenue, the fire that occurred, I think, December of last year, so getting close to a year. And actually, just as an update, the court proceedings, we're looking at the cleanup of that area in about 120 days, just as an FYI. But have an opportunity to invest in demolitions, increase what we've been doing over the past couple of years, and in many ways try to create a blank canvas that gives us something to work with. The program to refurbish homes that can be saved, we have several homes that are on the demolition list. And some of those, maybe a fourth or a third of those are ones that with a little TLC, if you will, maybe in the range of $10,000 to $15,000 could be homes that could be habitable. And I'll come back to this housing committee because it ties into that as well. Contracting brush and weed cleanup. This is an area in August of 2014 that the council made the decision that this be a priority. Obviously the right thing to do. But the one thing, it's costing several $1,000s. Right now we maintain the Macon County trust lots. If those actually sell, we do not see any reimbursement for the work that we're doing, and we're contracting out the Macon County Trust portion of the weed and brush abatement. Of the privately owned, where you see, maybe a fine in excess of a few $100s, really does not scratch the surface of the cost for the public works employees that aren't doing normal public works type of jobs during the course of the summer because they're so overwhelmed with the number of lots that they're taking care of for brush and weed abatement. Something's got to give. And it also, even this spring, when we, not that it was a revenue source, but the reality is the administrative court, the fines were going to offset some of these costs. When we offered a first offender program for that to be relieved, that negatively impacted the cost going to the weed and brush abatement as well. I see with this money, here's the biggie, land banking and vacant land reuse. Really would like to aggressively go after lots that are held by the Macon County Trust, other lots and possibly homes that we see that are very desirable, and in an attempt to reinvest in those properties, either for future economic development or really to try to be very strategic and offer some opportunities with housing. The Housing Committee. This is something that I envision being a brand new committee that's formed, and whatever the number is, 8, 10 people will serve on this committee, and their function will be varied. But it's all related to urban revitalization. I envision an opportunity for a housing committee in a very strategic location. Pick a location so that you increase your opportunity of trying to be successful. Where in one location, this housing committee is in place. Let's say we have, over the course of 2 or 3 months, we have 3 homes that we've made an investment in. And they're in a neighborhood, let's say not to expand any more than 2 or 3 blocks. and they have the ability to offer these up to people in the community. Not unlike a Habitat for Humanity home, but with a little twist on it. Socioeconomics is definitely going to drive the selection. A person, let's just say an example of a single mother with 3 children will come in front of this committee. Any applicant will, and they will present to the committee and will vie for selection for one of these homes. In the example, I said 3. And there could be people that come in and speak to their behalf, whether it be a pastor, whether it be a different person that might come in and vouch for the character and the overall ability that this person is going to be successful. So, with sort of those things in mind, the person's selected. They're given a home to live in, and there's an accountability component that, let's say, over the course of 18, 24 months, they come back quarterly and present to the housing committee that they continue to be successfully employed. That bring the kids in that example with the 3 kids that they bring in their report cards and show that they're successful as well because they're a part of this along with their mom in that example. I also see other opportunities that we open this up to trying to incentivize housing to city employees and even school district employees. It's an opportunity to put those folks in the different neighborhoods. I know residency, Mr. Taylor has spoke to that in front of council before many times. The reality is that we've got union contracts to negotiate, and that is, one of the biggest areas. Does not suggest that we don't bring the topic up, but that's the reality. Is these things are very costly to try to get them out of the to be considered within union contracts. But see opportunities, and I know that I've got city employees that if I would incentivize housing, they would explore that opportunity. And the goal being trying to create these neighborhoods, be very strategic again, and try to build these neighborhoods and create opportunities for other residents that live there. Going back to one of the comments that I made earlier about any city employee that sees somebody in a part of town that is taking care of their property, that they may normally not be doing that, I'm going to suggest that that's probably because they don't have the means to do that, as opposed to a lack of desire in doing that. And this program also would speak to that. So if you target an area, let's say it's Old King's Orchard, which actually on one of these future slides, you're going to see that there are opportunities for some of these properties that I feel would be easy to purchase or obtain. You open this up to other opportunities for the residents, the neighbors in those neighborhoods to maybe come before this very committee and say, committee, would you consider purchasing grass seed? If you would, I don't have the means to do this, but I'd plant the grass seed, whether it be buying paint to take care of some of the exterior needs for the property. And I'm not talking about major type of repairs to a home, but just small things that might help someone take care of their property. So with some of the housing opportunities that I feel that we have, and then some of the other opportunities that you could do with the current residents, I feel that we have the potential of starting something here, to be quite honest. And my fear is that I'm not explaining this well enough tonight to get interest out of the council and obviously the community. We've had meetings with HUD. We know that there's some HUD opportunities. Some of the money that would flow through HUD could be thrown into this program. And also, I think that there might be opportunities for private foundation money. But the key to this is generating this revenue that absent this, we do not have an opportunity to do this. Gaming and liquor revenue opportunities. What do I mean? Uh, what the initial proposal, how do I get to that $750,000 number? And that's increasing license, the gaming and liquor licenses. It also consideration of taxing each individual video gaming machine. Councilwoman Ray, to your request for a study session related to video gaming, that's coming on November 16th. And I think that there's components of what you are requesting that actually would tie in to some of the things that I'm talking about tonight, and we'll discuss that more on the 16th. But feel that there's opportunities that would be the source of revenue to kick this off. Even the $750,000, if I hit that mark, to be quite honest, I would also explore trying to obtain a municipal loan from a local bank where you might borrow $2.5, $3 million and make this initial kickoff, knowing that you've got a $750,000 revenue stream that you could pay this off over the course of 3 to 5 years, but make a big splash on the initial investment in this program. Other communities do very similar things. Detroit, there's a lot of examples. There's also examples with Kansas City and studies, and I think that we've got these opportunities as well. This right here is it's a heat map showing the areas where there's demo activity, trustee lots, and what city staff has identified as salvageable housing stock. And if you notice the area right there, it's very close to the downtown where you guys have made a major investment in the downtown, $14 million over the last several years. The downtown activity is it's very active. I mean, you try to find a parking space or eat at a restaurant over lunch, it's difficult to find that location. I think what I have been told is the investment there was hopefully to trigger new development close to, sort of a ripple effect outward. And if you see that orange and red area where we see the greatest opportunity, if this is approved, that is actually Old King's Orchard. And it's obviously on the east side of the 51 corridor, 51 southbound. Another strong desire is try to, change the image of that corridor in, southbound and northbound on 51. So these are the areas right here that I would target first, and there's obviously other opportunities, but I'm reluctant, if this is approved, I'm reluctant to do one house here and then another house 8 to 10 blocks away. I really think that it's critical to build some critical mass and try to, and this not be exclusive to just those folks in the homes that are available. I mentioned Habitat. There's partners out there, Decatur Public Housing. We've got other opportunities to partner with some organizations and do some stuff in partnership, obviously, where we can be very strategic with what all these entities are doing. Even think that there might be a private developer component to this as well, where maybe in an RFP, 5 homes are offered up as with very strict guidelines on the level of investment made into each of these homes, very strict guidelines on the time frame for the work to be completed, and an investment, be very specific in what these homes could be used for in this program. So I think if we get all these things moving in the same direction, we do some very positive things for folks that might not otherwise be able to enjoy home ownership, but we provide them that opportunity. There's even, even if we don't hand a title over, in my example of 24 months, I think that there's opportunities to offer down payments so that we so that we can help somebody get over that hump with the down payment and get a conventional loan with a local bank. I mean, there are a number of areas. And I don't think it's far fetched when, you talk about, in this example, I guess this is what I envision is, again, going back to the example of the mom and the 3 children. But somebody that is in a lower socioeconomic position or standing within the community, might be a hard worker, might have a job that's a job. But go in front of this committee, and depending on who's represented in this committee, over the course of coming back and presenting quarterly to the committee, they might strike a relationship with somebody there and open the door to a career type of job. I just think that there's opportunities out there, I guess is what I'm saying. Even the city employees and providing opportunities for District 61. If you have, we talk about recruitment, especially for public safety. Trying to increase minority recruiting. Again, I don't know that you don't know what kind of connection that you make if you put those city employees that would be willing to be a part of this, and I know that there are some. What that does for your recruitment? Not that that's necessarily what. I just think it's part of being in a neighborhood and a part of being a neighbor. There's conversations. What do you do for a living? Well, I work with Public Works for the city of Decatur, and then there's questions and comments about that, and who knows what opportunities develop regarding that. Here's another very exciting area, and it's very close to the targeted area of Old King's Orchard. You've got Crossing, the former Chick Clinic, and I know Dr. Ray is very involved in this. And we really feel like that as staff that we've got an opportunity to master plan this as a social services complex, and it all fits into the growth from the downtown area to the north and a little bit to the northwest, but then also obviously due east from the Old King's Orchard area that I feel that we have some opportunities, and have had some very, very preliminary discussions and see some opportunities for this site to improve the efficiencies of some of the social services that are being delivered in the community. It's actually very exciting. If you drive over the bridge there as you're going northbound on Franklin Street, just to see the view of Crossing the clinic there, it's exciting, and we think that again that we have chances to do other things on that city-owned property. And again, folks, I guess this is a biggie. Shop Decatur, find somebody that can say this a whole lot more enthusiastically than I am able to do, but it's important. And I think that we have opportunities to get that message out there, trying to turn around our sales tax revenues, and I think we will. So I guess in closing, guys, what I would like to say is I want to thank you for your time, support, and hope this furthers your vision for the community. It's a privilege to serve as the city manager for you guys, and I'm excited about the opportunities that we have in the city of Decatur. I'll take questions, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gleason. I know you went through a lot of time and effort and energy, and that you've been looking forward to giving this presentation. Comments from council? Patrick, you can start.
Well, first of all, can we get a hard copy of all this? That would have been nice to have tonight, instead of trying to take notes and everything. Again, I appreciate it. Again, you've been here about 8 months and there's some things that we've all known that need to be done. I'm excited about some of the things. I'll be up front. I really won't go along with the ambulance, getting the fire department involved in that. I think the costs are going to outweigh what we're going to gain. So for me, that's a no starter. actually, I wish you had gone one item so we could all talk about, and if we had any ideas. Economic development, guess that's a key that's keep us going. But I hope you, in that economic development, and I've talked about this before, is important not only for employers, but for employees, and I brought this up before, is extending the bus hours, okay? So people can get to work, not, because right now they go to 6 o'clock, something like that. So that would be a great investment because employers need employees, and if they can't get to work, and everyone doesn't have a car. So I hope in that's part of economic development to me, is making sure we extend our bus services and the hours that we have. I said, as far as the local fuel tax, I've made this point before, none of us want to raise taxes, but we need our streets fixed. And I'll certainly go along with that, but as I've said, it has to be a comprehensive program where everybody pays the burden. And that means garbage trucks, Comcast, every fleet, we need to capture as much revenue as we can from everybody so the burden is spread out, not just for the driving into a gas station. That's just, there's so many things here. But that when we talked about this last year on the gas tax, it was to fix our streets throughout the community, okay? And the city staff showed a large chart with all the different streets that need to be fixed in our town with priority. If they come in, let's say the old King's Orchard, if they're on there originally, yeah, let's work on them. But we need to make sure we're not putting the cart before the horse. If we're gonna work on like Old King's Orchard Urban, I think I'm excited about that. Again, I had brought up that that's a targeted area for a TIF district in that's key, it's so close to downtown. But we need to make sure that we're taking care of all our streets that need to be taken care of. I think it would be easier to swallow by our citizens that if we pay a higher local sales tax, that it's gonna be for their streets too, and not just targeted to one area. So that's my promise to people. I will not support a local gas tax unless it's comprehensive, and the money has to be used towards the whole community and go with the engineering's list of streets that have been on the list for a long time that need to be fixed. So I'll shut up. That's about all I have right now. Oh, one other thing that and I don't want to steal Ms. Iron's presentation maybe in our next meeting, but from what she has told me and what I've seen, we need to put more money. If we want to clean up our community, we need to put more money and have more of these cleanup activities that we just went through. That's a great investment for our community and the city, is to put more money into that, to have more of those. And you won't have as much trash and junk all around community and people's backyards. So that's a top priority for me. So.
I guess a couple of comments, Councilman McDaniel. John Williams is our new supervisor at Mass Transit. And actually, I know Assistant City Manager Jerry Bauer has directed him from prior council discussions to consider, to understand what the current routes are and what other opportunities we have. So I know that's something that's in motion. Point taken on the fire department source of revenue. And I'll say again, that's, to be quite honest, was the easiest one. When I met with the Decatur ambulance folks, the owners, it was one that I felt it very important that they heard from me. I also felt that it was very important that this is not saying anything negative about service. I want that to be very well known. These three last areas was an opportunity that I felt that we create a user type of fee to help offset some of the costs. The first one was the fire facilities. We're just not going to get around that at all. And then the last two, I think, are some new investments. And really, the sky's the limit. I mean, to your point about some of the programs that Rochelle does, and if we had the money, could we expand those? And the answer is yes. So it's exciting.
Mr. Dawson, thoughts?
First of all, I want to thank you. That was very well prepared. You talked about landlords a little bit. I know at one time I was the only one in favor of making the tenant pay for their own bills. And we talked about it, this new system to where we identify the bad tenants. But if we can't come up with something, I still want to go back to that old adage, make the tenant responsible. And I think we're kind of picking on the landlords. And since we did go to the monthly billing, I don't think it's as bad as it used to be, but that is something I still am looking at. Code enforcement, it's not supposed to be about revenue. I encourage our staff to have that relationship with the landlords, because if they know that if they make a phone call and that landlord's going to fix the problem, that's the way it should be. And you get some mixed signals where they're not supposed to do that. They're just supposed to write it up. And I leave it up to the code enforcement officer. If, he's talked to a resident or a landlord and nothing gets done, hey, shame on them. Write them up. But if that rapport is there and they know that phone call or that conversation is going to get it fixed, let them get it fixed. Gas tax. I'm not a big tax guy, but our roads are horrible. So, I would support a gas tax just because, but I do think the priority should be actually in the pavement. Some of the sidewalks are included in that. I do understand that. I do like your idea of reinvestment in the neighborhoods, because we get our EAV up and then everything else kind of takes care of itself. As far as the Decatur ambulance, I know we've had this conversation before. First of all, I appreciate your honesty, because the last time this came to us, it was everything but revenue. And I never saw it that way. But I believe in free enterprise, but I don't believe in government getting into that when the service is already there. So with that being said, we do have to figure out how to repair these firehouses, or build a new one if we have to. So whatever that's going to take, I will support you financially, because I know that's going to hurt, but I just don't think we can do it in the ambulance business. That's just my opinion. Video gaming, I think there's a lucrative opportunity there, but the only thing I'm going to say is it's been really volatile, because it's a fairly new thing, and I think it's going to be shaking itself out, but I've been for not putting a limit on these, let the market decide how many we can handle. Personally, I hate the things. I see that who's playing them, but again, we learned with Prohibition, if people are going to want to play them, they're going to want to play them. So 31 years in law enforcement, they were always underground. It was a pain in the butt when you got these complaints. They were very expensive to do surveillance on, and then you had to haul the machines away, and then a judge would give them back, and it was just a mess. So I don't like them personally, but maybe we ought to invest in education on they're just not good for a community, but it is good revenue. I just prefer that it stays here. I do like that we have local people reinvesting in the community with the profits, as opposed to some just leaving town and we have no benefit for it. But I do excited about a lot of things you said, and I just appreciate your candor, and it's refreshing. Thank you.
Dr. Ray?
As I was just writing down another note as I was listening to Jerry. So some of the things that I wrote down, and I'll just hit the whole fire thing first too. I really am not real excited about revisiting that, honestly, and I told you that previously. I wasn't excited about that. We've heard from the community previously when we had the discussion back in the spring. And I think we should just go ahead and just let that die. As far as the motor fuel tax, again, is something that we need to go ahead and do. We've been talking about it for years. It's unfortunate that we're in this position, but we just need to do it because we need to go ahead and improve our streets. I actually like your idea about doing it from sidewalk to sidewalk, because there are some areas where they are not in very good shape, and we need to make some improvements as far as that. As far as goal number 6 with the urban redevelopment, probably one of my suggestions as far as that $750,000 that you had projected that we could end up generating from this is that it is a certain percentage for each thing, because you had demos listed, you've had some other things listed. Demos could really end up eating up a lot of that. And so I just wanted to sort of set at a certain percentage that would go towards demos versus some of the other projects that you had listed. Again, just so that all of it is not just going towards demolition, because of course with the urban redevelopment, it can't just be about demolishing houses, but it has to be about rehabbing some of the houses as well. One of the points that you brought up, that Jerry brought up, that I like that you didn't actually present today, is that you actually stated that you would end up using some of the funds for education as far as how to budget, how to do financial planning and everything with these families as well, so that you can stop the generational cycle of poverty in that area. And so that's a piece that I think we should also, that probably needed to be brought out, that is also going to be an educational component to this, just not a handout, but it's going to be, I'm going to show you how to keep this house and how to be able to pay the bills for the house and all that other. Also, because this is one area that I did campaign on, so it is dear to my heart, but as actually utilizing some of the CDBG funds, which are federal funds, to be able to do some of the projects that you're talking about as well. And so we have some additional revenue source outside of that $750,000 that you discussed. And I'm actually going to use this as my opportunity to talk about also with the whole thing with the minimum wage tax. When I campaigned, I was not for minimum wage also at that point, and it was because we're going to end up seeing businesses leave out of Decatur. We're going to end up seeing more of these areas that are impoverished, because we're going to end up having more people not invest in their staff. They're going to end up letting staff go. And I think if we're going to look at something as far as with a minimum wage, it needs to be the entire state of Illinois, not just the city of Decatur, because we're going to push business outside of Decatur, and we're trying to attract business to Decatur and attract people into the houses in the city of Decatur. So, and I think that was all the notes that I had.
Mr. Faber?
Would it be all right if I deferred to Councilwoman Lisa Gregory?
Sure.
Thank you.
Ms. Gregory?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for all your hard work. We've been waiting 6 months to do this work. This new council got thrown some curves at the beginning. We spent a lot of time filling seats. And this is why I'm glad to be sitting on this council, is to do this work. Because it's really the work of continuing to make a greater Decatur. Takes the work of all of us, not just city staff and not just council, putting our blessing on it. But you started at the top, started with customer service. And so that's incumbent on all of us, that when we have an encounter with someone with the city and we walk away feeling really good about that experience, we need to tell them. Because I know if I'm complimented on my job, it just reinforces the good that I've done. And so that takes all of us. I'm really, really excited about the board community involvement. It goes right along with customer service and really just pitching in there and working and strengthening community relationships. A lot of what we've talked about here tonight has been about what I would call people work. And we don't think of that so much as council work because we think of the work that we do mostly as infrastructure. And so I've talked about it before. I talked about it at our last meeting. I really hope that we have the ability through board community involvement to engage faith-based economic development. Because it's our faith-based organizations that are in the trenches every day. And so we need their support. I can say Shop Decatur better than you can. Yeah. Follow me around on Saturday, just try and keep up. 6, targeted development revenue streams, road repair. I raked up half of my gutter last night when I put my leaves in the bag, and so I'm very excited about this, and it takes funds to do it. And so, echoing some of the comments of my colleagues, I want to make sure that when we're creating the revenue stream, that we create enough of a revenue stream to make an immediate impact. There's nothing like paying your taxes and then not seeing where it went. And so I hope that we can make a very good impact in that. I'm particularly excited about the urban development. We spent this summer walking through neighborhoods, and if we're truly not going to do the work in the neighborhoods, I truly don't have an interest in just providing face and lip service. I really want to make sure that we build our neighborhoods. Particularly excited about the opportunity to provide incentives for developers to increase our housing stock. And the idea that as Councilwoman Ray said, not doing so many demolitions as we do refurbishing homes. I watched in the audience tonight as you were talking, and there's excitement out there for this as well. So I just want to say thank you for a job well done. And I have a question. I would say that all of these would have to be in place by council prior to a budget, or do they come in coordination with the budget?
Some of these, actually, some of the comments, and I understand how, I guess, rumors get out there, but we have not budgeted anything related to an ambulance in the 2016 budget. That would have been very premature for me to have done that absent council direction. Some of the other areas, I'm confident that there was going to be council interest, but I definitely have quite a few of the details to work out. Some of them are a part of the FY16 budget, some are not. But the one thing that again, I want to say this yet again, some of these revenue streams that all of these revenue streams that I'm talking about will be tied to a single line item in the budget that is new. It will not be lost in the normal, duties and the general fund of the city. These are for new programs. Again, I know I've said this and I sound like a broken record, but this is our investment in the future. These are some extra steps that we're taking in difficult budgetary times that are an investment trying to control our destiny, if you will, and make Decatur, with all the exciting things that are going on in the community, whether we're talking about City Limitless, whether we're talking about the opportunities with the Midwest Inland Port, and there's many others. This very much, and it's been very clear that our role in all of this is to make our community more desirable for business expansion, business growth, and also providing neighborhoods where these employees, because good things are coming, it's just to what degree, and want to have opportunities to house these employees, these blue-collar workers, right here in this community. So that was a long answer, and I apologize for that, but there's a blend to that response. Some have been budgeted, some would be new items that have yet to be budgeted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Faber.
Thank you, Mayor. As I walked from my home down Oak Crest Avenue toward Fairview Park, Joanne and her husband stopped me in their front yard, and they said to me, Bill, if you're not talking about jobs and paychecks, you're not doing your job. Without jobs, good paying jobs, coming to Decatur, this city will die. And so Joanne and her husband want me and this council to be talking about jobs and paychecks almost all the time. And if we're not focused on that, we're not focused on the needs of our community. The people out there, Mr. Manager, as you know, are fearful and anxious and afraid for their future. They feel that their economic and financial future is in jeopardy. And we need to do all we can to reassure them and help them have a secure financial future. You know, looking back in history in the Roman Senate, there was a senator named Cato. And every session he would stand before the Roman Senate and he would say what was most important for the survival of the Roman Republic. And he would say, defeat Carthage. And I would say to you, I'm going to be Cato in this city council. And every session at the new business meeting, I'm going to say, Mr. Manager, council, how many jobs did we create, good paying jobs, did we create since our last council meeting? Because this is what the people want to know. Mr. Manager, as you know, you had brought up the idea of the residency requirement. We have over 100 city workers who live outside of the city of Decatur and who do not pay property taxes for our community. The amount of revenue that would create over time would be millions and millions of dollars. I conferred with Mayor Langfelder of Springfield and his executive assistant, and they have been working on the resident requirement development for their city for the past almost several years, even before he took office. And I understand that they have reached agreement with several unions who will go along with the idea of a residency requirement because they understand, like we understand, unless we get a tax base raised here and raise revenue, we're not going to have jobs here. So I would not let this concept of whether or not it'll work with the unions stand in your way. Mr. Manager, as you mentioned to your staff, don't tell me no, tell me how, make it work. Let's sit down and make it work. I think we can generate some ideas on that, millions of dollars. The other idea, Mr. Manager, is to raise millions of dollars. And maybe one of the functions of this council as a city council member is to act as a legislature and develop ideas for revenue. And I have put forward, and I will put forward, if you will allow me to work collaboratively with you and your staff, the idea of a revenue source to raise over $3 million. And that would be through the use of a citizen service fee arrangement. And I would like us to look into that so we can have all people who share the burden. That is the 22,000 people a day or more who come into our city and use our services, our roads, our fire protection, our police protection, our infrastructure to help them help us shoulder the burden. I would like to look into that. Also, I put forward and will put forward, if you will allow me to work collaboratively with you, Mr. Manager, an alternative idea to the motor fuel tax. Because a motor fuel tax is going to hurt service stations within the city limit. People are going to shop for the cheaper gas in the outlying areas. An alternative way to raise revenue that would raise as much or more revenue and avoid the conflict of competition with our service station owners would be to have a city vehicle sticker fee, which we could peg to raise as much or more in a very consistent way to raise revenue to help Mr. Marley fix the roads in our community. Finally, I really applaud you for your innovative and imaginative ideas for renovation and redevelopment. But I would say to this, if I may issue a warning, that the job is way too big for you. And it really you need to have almost like governments over the past year have used as a czar, one person appointed to really make that proposal, that idea, that program work, and whose focus is like a laser beam every day they walk into that office to focus on that one particular issue to make it happen. Because you, with all of your responsibilities, Mr. Tyus and the other people, it's just way too big a job. And I think dispersing it to a housing committee, I mean, it's nice to share the responsibility, but it's going to dilute the effort. We need to assume we are at war. and that we need to summons the troop, rally them to the gate, and get this job done to save our city. And this has to be done as soon as possible. So I applaud you for that idea, but I just offer that word of caution because it's really a project that is just absolutely huge. And let me just come back to my suggestion about the minimum wage proposal for just a moment and say why I offered it again. That is because, as it's pointed out, that it was passed by a non-binding referendum, advisory referendum last November. Governor Rauner has supported an increase, and many economists look at a raise in the minimum wage to be an economic stimulus. And I understand there's arguments pro and con, but we need to look at imaginative ideas, imaginative, bold ideas. And that is why I gave voice to that idea for the citizens of our community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager.
Mr. Funk, last but not least.
Well, I just wanted to say I appreciate the presentation and the work and thought that went into it, and I'm sure not only did the city manager spend a tremendous amount of time putting it together and synthesizing these ideas, but the city staff and everybody else that did the research. And I think there's some really good ideas in here that are worth considering. I think that the way you started your presentation is really kind of changing the tone and putting a positive can-do spirit and attitude forward to the citizens of our community and to the developers and business owners all. And I think when somebody calls the city or has a problem that that they would like solved or resolution, or somebody that would like to do a project, we ought to be in that mindset of, sure, let's put our heads together. We won't always say yes, we won't always agree, we won't always have an incentive, but to have the dialogue in good faith and in a positive way sends the right message. And I think that for too long, Decatur's gotten the rap, maybe fairly, that the city's been anti-business or anti-development, and to hear that is going to change in the tone from the inside is refreshing. I think that the stark reality is we have very challenging budget situation, and you said 0.5% increase in 5 years. The pace of inflation, just core inflation's been 2 or 3% a year, and then the cost of inflation and a lot of other things that the city is kind of beyond our control, or maybe hard to control, or probably in the 5 to 10% range a year. So it's going to be tough, and there's some challenges, and I'll look forward to seeing some more particulars on all the budget items. So I'm not going to weigh in on those really, but I guess the one point I would make, and I really strongly agree with Dr. Ray's points on the minimum wage question. There's a lot of feel good that goes into the idea of raising minimum wage and everybody getting paid more. I think everybody should make $20 an hour or $50 an hour, whatever they can do. But the reality is that if you raise the minimum wage and force people in Decatur to pay an artificially high minimum wage, it's going to drive jobs out of the city. And kind of the irony of talking about a motor fuel tax driving fuel dollars to Mount Zion or Forsyth or somewhere else, you do the exact same thing to people that own businesses, that employ people, or people that buy things in businesses that have artificially inflated labor rates. It doesn't work. But really looking forward to seeing some more meat on the bones as you roll out the budget and the proposals. And again, good work on a solid presentation.
Thank you. I would like to add my kudos to you as well for putting together a solid presentation. And I do appreciate the times we're in, the expense of trying to get things done, and that you are looking at various sources for revenue. Gas tax has never been my favorite thing, but I think we've hit the point where we've, as Dr. Ray said, we've been talking about this. We've got to get our roads fixed, and with a dedicated stream of revenue to make that happen is something that I'm ready to pull the trigger on. I'm very excited about your ideas for revitalizing our housing stock in this community. It's good for everybody. It would be very easy for the council to just concentrate on other things, but our neighborhoods are vital. Getting this town into a better shape and a better place for our people to live is absolutely critical as we move forward. So I am open to all of your ideas, and let's get moving toward the budget. But I think good things are coming from this community, and appreciate your leadership and your team. And going back to the customer service notion, wasn't that long ago, Decatur didn't have a very good reputation as far as cooperation from city staff or getting help from city staff. And I think that has changed radically in the last, well, at least the last 5 or 6 years, to where developers have a much better feeling in coming to talk with and work with people in the city, as well as just Joe Average calling to try and get some help. So I appreciate the staff and all the work that they go through, but customer service is a big deal because we're all in this together. So, yes.
On the minimum wage, again, I think, yeah, we wish everybody made. I attended a opening of a new ribbon cutting for a new business about 3 weeks ago, and the owner showed me in the back, showed me 2 new machines that they spent the money on, and it's to eliminate additional employees. And this is what's going to be happening. It is happening throughout our the country, is as wages go up, as far as minimum wage and that, businesses are looking ways to cut down the number of employees. So, again, there's pros and cons, but that just really sent a message to me right here locally. 2 new machines, so they have to have less employees. So we got to think of that. I'm excited about everything. I just want things in detail. I want to, step by step, especially on the housing, and I want to get people into homes that deserve them and want them, and that's going to help our property taxes. And as Mr. Taylor and I have discussed, we do talk. We discussed, I don't want to get people into homes that they cannot afford. We all live in houses. It takes expensive. I just spent $5,000 on a new roof 5 years ago, and 2 years ago, $5,000 on a new air conditioning and that. So you're not helping people, and we've discussed this, you're not helping people getting into a home that they can't afford to be there, okay? And I've talked to some other community leaders this weekend, and they agree. You're not helping people. That's how we got in this big mess with our recession since 2007, getting people into homes they couldn't afford and maintain. Education is good, budgeting, but if you don't have much to budget, you got a real problem. And I think the Social Security came out with a new report here in the last 2 weeks showing that the majority of Americans have less than $1,000 in their savings account. Now, what do you do when you gotta have to put a new furnace or a new hot water heater in? So let's get the people in so again, I want to see more details on how we're going to do that. Again, a proponent of that is the financial. Are they able to maintain the house? So again, I'm looking forward to details and things like that.
I think we all are. And Mr. Gleason, again, thank you for your presentation, and we look forward to details coming in the future.